All right, just a quick heads up before we jump in. This is all for educational purposes, and it's definitely not financial advice. Okay, let's get right to it. So, today, we are diving deep into one of the biggest stories absolutely shaking up the entertainment world. We're talking about a battle that could completely change what you watch and, yeah, how much you end up paying for it.
And it all kicks off with this massive number, $82.7 billion. Think about that. That was the staggering opening shot fired in this whole war.
So for that price, what does Netflix get? Well, they announced they were buying some of the most iconic properties in history. You've got the prestige of HBO, the entire 100-year legacy of Warner Bros. Studios, all the magic of Harry Potter, and yeah, every single hero and villain in the DC universe. The whole shebang.
But just when you thought the ink was about to dry, boom, Paramount comes in and crashes the party. We're talking a massive, hostile counteroffer of over 108 times billion dollars. This turned a simple deal into an all-out bidding war. And you know who's worried? Theater owners. They're calling it an existential threat. So let's break down what this really, truly means for your streaming bill.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to break down the initial deal, then look at the bidding war that just exploded, see how it could totally reshape Hollywood, dig into the regulatory fight it's facing, and, of course, what it all means for your wallet.
All right, let's start at the very beginning. The initial deal. What exactly was Netflix trying to get their hands on? And maybe more importantly, why was a giant like Warner Bros. Even for sale?
I mean, just look at the sheer cultural weight of what's on the table here. We're talking HBO, right? The home of Game of Thrones and The Last of Us. The entire Warner Bros. Film library. That's everything from Casablanca to The Matrix. You get all of DC Comics, the entire wizarding world of Harry Potter, plus Cartoon Network and even CNN. This is so much more than just a content library. It's literally a century of our cultural history.
So you gotta ask, why on earth would a company sell off these crown jewels? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. Debt. A whole lot of it. Warner Brothers Discovery is just saddled with over $40 billion in debt, mostly from its last big merger. So for years, their whole strategy has been cut, costs, content, you name it. Selling to a super cash-rich company like Netflix, it started to look like the only real way out.
And okay, this is where the story takes a super dramatic turn. Just as Netflix and Warner Bros. Were getting ready to sign on the dotted line, Paramount decides nope and launches a direct assault.
So let's break down this fight, offer for offer. On one side, you have Netflix. Their offer was friendly, board approved, a mix of $42 billion in cash and about $40 billion in stock. But then Paramount comes in swinging. Their bid, hostile. They went straight to the shareholders with a staggering $108 billion. And get this, it was all cash.
And they weren't even done. Paramount made it very clear, very publicly, that their massive offer was, and I quote, not best and final. What does that mean? It means they were signaling to absolutely everyone that they were willing to go even higher to win this thing.
So let's just imagine for a second, what would the industry actually look like if Netflix manages to fend off Paramount and actually closes this deal? Well, to put it mildly, the consequences would be massive.
And this chart, it really shows you the new power structure perfectly. A combined Netflix and Warner Bros. Would suddenly control over 30% of the entire US streaming market. Just to put that in perspective, that's more than Disney and Hulu, and it's double the share of Amazon Prime Video. We're talking about a new, undisputed king of streaming.
And when you have that kind of market dominance, it leads to three huge seismic shifts. First up, content consolidation. Netflix would basically own every major franchise that isn't already owned by Disney. Second, you're looking at a potential collapse for movie theaters. I mean, chains like AMC, Regal, and Cinemark saw their stocks just plummet. We're talking 18 to 24% on the news alone. And third, and this is the one that hits us all, pricing power. With a library like this, analysts are predicting Netflix could hike its standard plan up to $25, maybe even $30 a month.
But, and this is a huge but, this mega deal is far, far from a sure thing. Now it has to survive what's going to be a pretty brutal fight with government regulators, and believe me, they are very skeptical of this much power being in one place.
Okay, so to really get what's happening here, you need to know this is what's called a vertical merger. Basically, Netflix is a distributor and Warner Bros. Is a producer. And historically, the government hasn't been as concerned with these types of deals, but the sheer size of this one, it changes the game completely.
It's already drawing comparisons to when the DOJ tried to block the AT&T and Time Warner merger a few years back. So this deal now faces a tough three-step gauntlet. First, anytime you create a company with over 30% market share, that triggers automatic, intense scrutiny. No way around it. Second, the Department of Justice or the FTC can just sue to block the whole thing if they think it's bad for competition. Or third, they could try to force concessions. Remember when Disney bought Fox? They had to sell off 22 sports networks to get that approved. Netflix might be forced to do something similar, maybe selling off CNN, for example.
So for Netflix, this whole regulatory gauntlet comes down to three big obstacles. First, that market share number is just an automatic red flag for antitrust regulators. Second, there's a huge human cost. We're talking up to 15,000 predicted layoffs from duplicated jobs. And third, regulators are going to argue that giving one single company this much control over our culture, well, that it could seriously stifle creativity and diversity in storytelling.
So after all of this, the billions of dollars, the hostile takeovers, the regulatory fights, it all boils down to one thing really. The final showdown for your screen time and for your wallet. So what does all this actually mean for you and me? Well, it really boils down to two possible futures. If the deal gets approved, great. You get the convenience of having everything from Stranger Things to Batman all in one app. The downside, of course, is that your Netflix bill is almost certainly going up. A lot. Now, if the deal gets blocked, prices will probably stay more competitive, but you'll have to keep juggling and paying for a bunch of different subscriptions to watch everything you want. And if you're sitting there hoping for a clear answer on which way this is going to go, well, don't hold your breath, because even the experts are split right down the middle. It's a total 50-50 toss-up on whether regulators will ultimately let this thing happen.
And that kind of brings us to the final big question for all of us, doesn't it? What do we actually want? Do we want the pure simplicity of one subscription to rule them all, even if we have to pay more for it? Or do we want a competitive landscape with more choices, even if it's a little more complicated to manage?
Because at the end of the day, this is so much bigger than just corporate balance sheets. This is a fundamental fight for who gets to control the future of storytelling and entertainment itself. And the grand prize in this whole war? Yeah, it's your monthly bill.
If you want to keep making sense of the huge, complex forces that are shaping our world, do us a favor and subscribe. We'll have plenty more explainers just like this one coming your way.